Just in case you're wondering about the fairness of things, individuals tend to get 5 minutes and groups get 10 minutes.
Gathered that. Yes, so just to hear on behalf of my wife and myself, my wife's a chartered accountant. She made the submission, can't be here today, but happy to take some questions. Perhaps if I just touch off on the highlighted items in terms of the submission we made. I think the long-term plan correctly identified a sort of debt leverage or balance sheet crisis for the council, and that's well publicised and signalled. I guess our concern with it was about the narrow framing of the solutions in terms of how it's been presented and the options available. So we've put forward a couple of thoughts that council might like to pursue in terms of addressing or broadening its options and providing more flexibility. So one of the solutions to a sort of debt leverage crisis is about addressing cash flow and your ability to fund sustainable debt. One of the solutions we felt council should look at is to start with zero-based budgeting, in which case you take things back to what's legislatively required, what is actually required, and then build up from that, rather than taking an incremental approach of what happened before as the baseline. So it's about resetting the baseline. Because it's pretty important in the situation here, where any savings that are created out of operational budgets will enable more sustainable debt, which gives the council more options in terms of what it can and can't do. And that's the fundamental challenge that the council, I believe, is facing in terms of this long-term plan. That leads into some of the options that were presented by the council in terms of sale of assets. And I guess there's a challenge there around you can sell the easily saleable ones, the natural monopolies, the ones that there's plenty of buyers for, but perhaps the council should really be looking at assets that are non-performing, i.e. aren't providing any return, or are businesses better managed by other agencies. Surplus assets, I think we've seen a pretty significant example of that just overnight, really, with the council surplus, not government surplus land in Auckland being made available for housing. I'm sure if the council made the same review of its own land holdings and assets in that sense, there would be opportunities there, particularly as the city changes shape and how the red zone's used and comes back. The other one is, in terms of assets, is that it seems to be proposal to hold on to assets that are consuming cash in terms of where they are in their investment cycle. Enable comes to mind there. According to last year's financial accounts, requires another 337 million to complete the rollout of the fibre network, and that's over the next 8 years. So while it's not a large investment now, it will be over this period of time. The outcomes are uncertain from that. It might be a great investment, but it's perhaps one that this council can't afford in its current circumstances. And then I guess we really see it as council's role is to everything where resources get put, but if we felt there needed to be an emphasis on capital spend, focusing on basic infrastructure and getting the city back on its feet, and particularly around leveraging off what's already here in terms of enabling growth within the city limits rather than at its peripheral. And that's really the last point there. Hopefully I've left a bit of time for questions, but not much.
Just two quick questions. With regards to our assets, what do you think about a leasing option, say to organisations like New Zealand Retirement Fund or ACC, rather than a sell?
You're not realising cash, so that's really what you're trying to do is by asset disposal. If you're leasing them, then it doesn't really change your position. You could pay interest or you could pay a lease fee. It's not going to make any difference. Okay. So you either need to sell them or hold on to them and make them work.
Thinking of this. Thanks.
It's going to be really quick, Andrew.
A contrast, I guess, between what you're saying in your submission and Council's own consultation document. The spending programme, the capital spending programme in particular in Council's own document, is described as bold and aspirational. And obviously to be funded by rates increases and sale of assets mainly. You're suggesting that the sale of assets means that future generations will simply pay for today's weak leadership. So are you suggesting that that bold aspirational programme to be funded by asset sales actually is a sign of weakness because we're taking an easy way out?
No, what I see is you're not making the operational changes, just selling the family silver, not changing the lifestyle of the way the council's working. So all it'll do is buy time. We'll be in the same position in 10 years and we'll have the same outcome. We won't have leveraged if you realise the cash, you won't have leveraged the opportunity that it creates.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Megan would be very proud of you. Thank you, Tim.
All right, Glenn.
Thanks, Tim.